Woo.
All right.
Episode 20.
Episode 20 in the house. Episode 20.
Got it.
Oh,
Got it.
man.
Big moment.
Episode 20. That's what's up.
What a ride.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering how y'all feel about episode 20.
Man, this one's got to be epic. I'm so excited. We never thought that we would get here, but we here now. No, we thought we would get here. We always knew we would, but it's one thing to know that you finally did. So just happy
Right.
for us, man. I'm happy for the maturity, the maturation, the evolution, and where we're going. So kudos to you both for
Yeah, man. And to you too.
locking
To you
arms
both
to be
too.
here.
Yeah.
So good. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing. Again, like it's what we envisioned being able to get to. But actually launching and getting to this point, it's been quite a feat, man. A lot of growth in a lot of ways for the three of us individually, the three of us collectively, our 40, 50 audience, growing as it's growing and sharing here and there, give us love where we go. Absolutely. Absolutely. It means a lot. It means the world. We appreciate it.
We definitely thank you all for joining us for our 20th episode. And you know what? We want to get right to it. Safety, security, and fearing for your life. All of those things in our country are at a precipice each and every day. From Minnesota to Chicago recently, from the Oval Office to the streets of Washington, D.C., guns, gun violence, and gun safety continues to be the topic of discussion here with us. And you know what? We want to start that discussion right now, here, with us being in our 40s and 50s as Black males. What does this mean for us in America? So let's talk about that right now, right here on a 40-50 Social Club.
Welcome to the 4050 Social Club. We are so excited to have you join us today as we talk about the important topics of helping you transition through the ages of 40 to 50. Black men, if you're out there, if you need a resource or reference point to share some time with myself, CJ, and Quest as we take you on different journeys and stories and give you our perspective on how to navigate through the most important years of your life, ranging from relationship to faith to finance to entrepreneurship to corporate America. You name it, we got you. Come join us, Black men, as we talk about some of the most pressing topics you'll want to talk about as you transition between the ages of 40-50. 40-50 Social Club. Let's check out this next topic today. Let's go, y'all.
So I know everyone has heard about the recent mass shooting in Minneapolis. We understand that the shooter shot into the church, wounding about 21, killing 2 kids. I think it was an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, if I'm not mistaken. We, understand a little bit around the shooter's background and kind of how that all evolved. So I just want to, take a moment and pause, just so that we can recognize the people that were involved in this shooting. So just want to take a moment and pause. Thank you. Thank you very much. So guys, I think there's a lot that, can be talked about here, but I want to first start here because not only is it fresh in our mind, but when we think about the levels of mass shootings in America, this is in some ways a category of its own and what we call, a mass shooting where a shooter actually imposes their will on a massive crowd of individuals. So I just want to give it over to you all just to get your not only your reactions, but even so much more your thoughts and your feelings around this shooting that happened at the church in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, that is.
Man, like you already said, our hearts and prayers go out to those families and friends that were impacted by this. I can't help but think about it seems like every year, every other year, we hear of another scenario like this, another tragic story that happens in some of the places that you never would have imagined.
Mm,
And all of a sudden it just pops up and it just rocks our world in an area of disbelief. But then when you start peeling behind it and understanding some of the things that go into these instances that happen, it makes you really want to think about, what are the ingredients that go
mm.
into these type
Right.
of tragic situations that happen, and why aren't we looking at those ingredients more deeply?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that man,
Yeah.
that's really real. And I guess I would say for me, it was interesting hearing you just talk about that, Jay, because I know where my mind first goes. Like I go back to Columbine, one of the first
Yeah.
ones that I can really remember. And then you had Sandy Hook. You had all these things going on at these schools. And being a career educator, it's my 31st year working in schools.
Mm,
And it brings it home in ways that are scary, in ways that make you understand kids go through a lot. You hate to see, especially in this case, here's a young person, age 23, went back to a place where this shooter, this perpetrator, had actually been schooled in younger years.
Yeah.
The shooter's mom
yeah,
worked at the school. You know what I mean? So there's a
Yeah.
lot that kind of goes into that. But even before I come to that situation, going back to 98, 99, whenever Columbine was, I remember at that time thinking like, wow, this seems emblematic of like an American sickness, and this gets to what Jay was just talking about. Like, what are we doing here to produce this over and over and over and over? And what can be done now to try to stem that tide? So, when you ask like where my
mhm,
mind first went, it went there. I think when I think about the specific situation, even getting beyond the shooter and whatever was happening there, I think about the victims. Quest, you mentioned the two young people, ages 8 and 10.
Yeah.
What was it, 14 or 15 of the people who were shot were between the ages of 6 and 15.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
praying in mass on the first day of school. Three of the other people who were shot were adults, and each of them was over 80. Like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on? And what I think also really upsets me is it's become such a political issue now.
Hmm.
And we can get more into that, I think, in a little bit. But of course, we want to get your reaction to it too.
I have to be honest. When I first heard it, I was hoping that the guy wasn't black.
Mm, mm,
Going back
yeah,
to just
mm,
being real, with it, like,
mm.
we remember my man, what was his name? His last name is Muhammad, but the DC sniper.
Oh,
We
indeed. We
remember
were
the
living in
DC
DC at the
sniper.
time.
Well,
Yeah, we
yeah,
were there.
yeah, yeah. I was living in DC too, so it was like, like I mean, everyone remembers that, and everyone was remembers hoping that this person wasn't black. And when we found out that
yeah,
this person was black, all of us was like, "Oh my God!" Like
yeah,
this is just not what we do, quote unquote. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So I did go to that place, just just with a glimpse of like, I
Mm,
really do
that's
hope it's
real.
not,
mm,
not us. At the same time, I felt heartbroken because I don't know about anybody else, but it's a continuation of the last time and the
Yeah,
time before that
mm,
and the time
yeah,
before that. It continues to be a justification for us being able to pass gun laws and to for people to continue to find these loopholes to be able to continue to not have a lot of information and data collected on the individuals that are purchasing guns.
mm,
I'm honest. I'm a gun card holder. I'm a gun carrier. You know what I'm saying? So I
mm,
understand the whole wanting to make sure that a person is legit. I want to make sure too, because I don't want to have to kill nobody neither, right? I
mm,
mean, I guess,
mm. Wow.
when you openly think about it and look at it like that, you don't want it to be that way. But then you look at this scenario and you say to yourself, someone was able to purchase a rifle right out, just like a normal person
yeah,
would that would go to
Mm.
any other range and just
Got it
shoot
legally.
down range and
Got it
got
legally.
it
yeah,
legally, right?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
at that point in time, came back, like you said, Chris, to a place that they knew
Mm,
and and we don't know. I'm gonna let everybody, have the opportunity to speak about what could have been going on because we all saw reports.
Mm,
We don't know exactly what was going on, but I think even in the speculation, we see that there's some trauma here. But
mm,
to what I'm saying, like, coming back to that place and just
mm,
opening fire, like that
mm.
is why, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
everyone listening to us now, how wild is that? Just think about it. Right now, we are taping this and pew, right through. Like,
Mm.
that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. That's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
what we're saying. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like that, those two kids,
Mm,
their lives is over. They're not going to be able to go and play anymore. You're not going to be able to see them growing up and learning about certain things and being able to take, their first opportunity on the bicycle or
mm.
go and get that first permit for driving. Like, they're not going to have that opportunity
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was taken away from them. And don't get me wrong, I know we all have to go some way, but why that way? Why like
Yeah.
that?
Right that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't
Yeah.
I can't help but think about to your point, Quest. There's so many layers here, like all the topics that we talk about, they have so many different layers.
Mm,
But the fact that this happened during a whole mass,
mm,
right?
Yes.
You're this is happening in a very religious and spiritual setting.
mm.
And imagine what people are thinking, like, why would God allow this to happen?
Hey,
Wow.
Well,
that
now people are starting to question their faith in ways that
Mm,
maybe they didn't prior to. So I'm like, we've already talked about, color, and we thinking about, thank God it wasn't a black person. That's one of the first things that comes to mind. But then once you get past that, you start looking at like, whoa, it's so much bigger than that,
yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I can't help but just think about all the layers understanding what the shooter had went through, what upbringing did they have, and then
mhm,
thinking about the mom who worked there. Like, are they
mm.
now interrogating her and looking at how she raised this person? It's like it's just
Yeah.
so many different things to consider that are
Yeah.
all just like puzzling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you were talking, or we all been talking about the two who passed away. There's isn't there another young kid who like had to have part of a skull removed in order
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get them back right? And I heard the
yeah,
story. It's like right after it happened, there was a young kid, couldn't have been older than 8, 9 years old himself. And he was talking about like kneeling in the pew. He was kneeling and praying and it just heard this pop, like the sound, and phew,
yeah,
bullet went like right past him, like whizzed right
yeah,
past him. And
yeah,
he's got this just young, innocent voice, and he's talking about this. I'm like, wow, talk about growing up before your time. A lot of
yeah,
us, depending on where we grew up, I feel like I grew up before my time, but I
Yeah.
have pity on those who still have to go through that. Like it's stuff that you wouldn't
Yeah.
wish on your worst
mm,
enemy.
Nope.
And so he's
mhm.
talking about this, and what was fascinating about it too is he said like this happened, and then a friend of his who was sitting next to him like jumped on him
Jumped on
and
top
covered
of him.
him.
And
Yeah, and then that
caught
kid took
one.
a bullet.
Yep,
That kid
yep,
Yeah.
took a
yep,
bullet,
Took the
wound up
yep,
bullet,
surviving, luckily.
yeah.
But like
but
all
he
these
still
things that
keep on.
happen in that
Mhm,
split second,
mhm.
in a
One.
way that's just it's chaotic. It's obviously unfortunate. Tragic. It's just tragic. It's just a
It's
pure
tragic.
Yeah,
tragedy. You know
You
yeah,
that
you
you
you'll
feel could have
never
been prevented.
you'll never know how that sounds and how that feels unless you're in it. And I
Mm.
tell people, if you hear it, it wasn't you.
Whew.
So it's real. I know that
yeah,
real, marksmen and other people that understand what I just said understand that.
Mm,
But if you heard it, it wasn't you.
mm.
yeah,
Wow.
So
Mm,
that's the reality of it. Like that's just
mm,
how fast, that's just how
mm,
instantaneous and that it is in those moments. If that person can shoot,
mm.
if you heard it, it wasn't you.
Yeah. Wow. Man, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
yeah.
Now, thinking
I
about
just
that,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Uh-huh.
I was gonna ask this question. Where do we see an opportunity for the community to be able to safeguard situations like this? Is there
Man,
even a place? Is
yeah,
there even a situation
that's
that
so
we can
crazy.
even think about where we can
Yeah.
safeguard ourselves
mm,
from something like this?
Yeah, no, I thought it's funny that
mm,
you asked this question because I was thinking the same thing. Basically, where does the school and the community go from here?
mm,
Yeah.
And I'm still stuck there with a question mark. One could say it's, education. One could say it's, let's start looking at some of the trigger points. Let's start looking at, how our kids are responding to us as parents, and are we able to identify certain things that could be triggers right before the trigger happens.
mm,
But it's
Mhm.
like, man, you start putting parenting under a microscope, and then it starts to impact the education.
mm,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it's
mm,
like, how do you balance all that? Or, oftentimes the kids are going to school and getting parenting at the school
mm, mm,
more so than they are at home, right? So, how do you start to just look at those dynamics? Do you focus on what's happening at home, or do you focus
mm,
on what's happening at school, or do you do both?
mm.
Right? And then
Wow.
how do you not let the outside come back in?
Mm,
Yeah.
It's like you have to create this protective cocoon. Like, how did this person get to come back in? Of course, well, he was a teacher's son, so
mm.
it's twisted, man. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
one answer to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
man, that is so complicated. Because I think where my mind goes is to feeling, and I don't know how true this is, but I want to believe that this is true, that people who do things like this have some kind of mental health struggle. Now I think a bunch of us do. Like I think I'm going through my own, the way that we're talking, the three of us know that we're going through our own, but not at a point where we're tripped to that degree.
Yeah,
But it's hard for me to see somebody who is really sane of mind doing something like this. So when it comes to solutions, like, are there early warnings that you see? Like one of the articles I read on this, and I feel bad for the young woman who was talking about it, but she said she said I knew the shooter way back
Mhm.
when and could have told you then based on some things that at the time he was writing and he was saying and he was doing, there was something there. And she was saying, I just didn't know what to do with it. I was
Mhm.
young,
yeah,
Mhm.
was
yeah,
small. It kind of made me nervous, but I didn't know what to do with that. And that person's going to be carrying guilt for the rest of her life now about
Yeah,
not
come
having
on.
stepped
Come
in a
on.
decade ago to do
Come on. Come
something
on. Come
just
on.
because she was feeling a little
yeah,
uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So,
Come
like,
yeah,
on.
is
Come
there a
on.
way to be able to see signs like that early and get people the help that they need? But again, for me, I even go back further than that. Again, when I talk about this American sickness, this thing that I think we're all infected by, there are great things about being American, but there's something that we're doing that's producing this over
yeah,
and over and over.
Yeah.
And I personally, I want to get to the bottom of that. I don't know what it
yeah,
looks like, but I really want to get to the bottom of it.
yeah,
Yeah. And that is good perspective. I think, when we think about just that question that I just asked, I when I think about it, I look at the fact that we are the only people that can control our safety.
Mm,
And we start looking at some of the stats, right? We
mm,
start looking at some of the stats that continue to say that America is leading in mass murders and
mm,
mass shootings in both areas, not just mass shootings, but mass murders too.
yeah,
So, when we look at things like that, I think we pivot ourselves to the situation that happened over the weekend in Chicago.
mm,
And
yeah,
now we're looking at this in this scenario that is categorized in the same category, but has a different column. And this
mm,
is where we see mass shootings with individuals in some ways that have decided that they are going to shoot at each other.
mm,
yeah.
And I think
It's a
I
different trauma.
personally feel it's a different trauma. It's a different category under the same umbrella, and it can get muddy and it can get real gray in a
mm,
lot of
Mhm.
ways. But still no one, no one wants to be in the crossfire. No one
Yeah.
wants to be a part of it. No
Mm,
one wants to be, a piece of what is going on between a beef or whatever the situation
mm,
is. Right? No one still wants to be part of that. And that's where the casualty part still feels the same. I
mm,
still feel for these individuals that were caught in the crosshairs, the multiple wounded
Yeah.
individuals here. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? And just
Yeah.
thinking about that, we don't know what their wounds are.
mm,
Right.
Just like in the Minnesota situation, we don't know what everyone's bullet wound was.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
talked about the young person with the skull situation.
mm,
Whoa, right? Whoa, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
developmental issues and struggles now come
Oh
with
my
that?
gosh.
And
Yeah.
and then coming back over here where you were going to get you some arrows or something like that,
mm,
and all of a
mm,
sudden something erupts out, and now you don't have a leg, or
mm,
they had to take
Yeah.
your spleen, or whatever. You still
mhm,
survive, but at the same time, now you're surviving, and you got to survive a whole nother way,
mm.
a whole
Wow.
Yeah.
nother life you got to live now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
man,
And
man.
it's interesting, and I know we'll talk about this in a second. A couple of things I think about, can't help but think about, is something that Babe and I talk about all the time. Is like these four quadrants of inequity. You know,
Mm,
it's like the personal, interpersonal, the institutional, and systemic. And it's like when you start looking at each one of these situations, you have to assess all four of those quadrants. Like it's not like it's just one that's being impacted.
mm.
But I think when you look at culturally, there's different dynamics happening in Minnesota versus the dynamics that are happening
Yeah,
in Chicago,
you
Mm,
right.
mm.
right?
Speak on
And
it. Speak
so
on that.
it's just like, and each one of them requires a different solution, but at the same time, they're both centered in trauma.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm,
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes.
know, and it's like
mm,
one is probably more acceptable. Like people are like, okay, yeah, 52 people got shot up in Chicago. Okay, yeah, that happens.
mm,
But then when it's like, okay, this happened in Minnesota, it's like, whoa, like we gotta stop breathing for a second and try to figure out what's going on. But
mm,
I hear
what makes
you.
this
I hear
one
you.
any different? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
almost like they both happen so close to each other for us to
yeah,
look at both of them and how we treat them on a national
differently.
level a little
Yeah,
bit differently.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Because
You know,
again,
yeah, oh, yeah,
somebody lost. There were 8 people that were killed in Chicago.
Mm.
8
yeah.
people, okay? The
It's like what,
numbers
50
have
something people
doubled.
that got
58.
shot or
58
wounded or
50
people.
get
something like that.
shot.
58 people got
Yeah,
shot, okay? So to
Mhm,
say that and to say we're looking at it differently, it allows us to know that there is systemic trauma that has been also placed on us to make us feel differently
mm,
in this same situation.
mm,
but I guess,
Somebody,
yeah. Go ahead.
somebody lost they son or daughter
That's
in
right.
both
mhm,
That's right.
situations.
In both
In
mhm,
both
situations.
situations.
That's right.
mm,
That's right.
That other part does mean something, but this part I feel is the point.
mm,
Somebody lost somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody lost that person not coming back now because of a person that chose to use a gun as a weapon
mm.
against other humans.
So I
Yeah.
can't help but think about the solution. So the
Mm,
solution on a social political level is to send troops to solve one problem. Why are we sending troops to Minnesota? Why do we have to send all these people for these 58, but we still trying to think about what we gonna do over here. It's like, oh well, let's talk about it some more.
Yeah.
To
that's
to me,
interesting.
that's
Yeah.
like, wow, like
Mm,
why can't we assess both of them in the same level of severity as well as the same level of resource?
Mhm. Mhm.
To me,
Is
yeah.
that's
that
that to me, that's another puzzle.
It
Mm,
is. And that's a good part of it. That's a good part that you explaining there.
yeah.
That's a good part.
Gosh, and it's interesting because I mean I hear that and I on some level I obviously really agree with it. There's a part of me that gets saddened at the idea that that violence that we just heard about in Chicago, it's been going on for so long, y'all. It's been going
Yeah,
on forever
for a
now.
long
And
time.
it's
Yeah,
so commonplace that it's almost expected and it just
yeah,
doesn't rise to the same level of immediacy and feel like it needs to be treated the same versus this thing in Minnesota that feels like it's a one-off. You got one shooter who did this thing. The comparison in that way I get, right? Like you have one, you're not going to send the National Guard in to stop one random shooter who might happen
right.
versus this thing that's been going on for at least the last 30 years, if not
Yeah,
longer than that in Chicago.
I don't
So
know.
I get it. I
I
get
don't
wanting
know. I
to.
don't know, Chris.
I'm
I
telling you,
don't
it's
know.
not.
Why not put the National Guard and all them on the streets just to see if crime goes down like Trump is doing? Why
Wait, you're
not put
asking
them
if
in
I think
Minnesota?
that should happen? Like if I
No, I'm
think,
just saying. I'm just saying. Why not? Why not? I know it's one random shooter, but if I've seen in the last, 2 years that we've had three random shooters in Minneapolis, why not send the National Guard out there? We don't know who's going to do it next.
yeah,
wow. I mean, that's interesting. Like that. That's then
I'm
you
just,
start getting
I'm
into
just
like
thinking.
resources. Then you start getting into
yeah,
resources. And bottom line is, I don't think that they're going to
They're not.
deploy that many people over three shooters over a handful of years, right? Like I just don't
right.
see that happening. I just don't see that being
Yeah,
practical enough for it to go down. Versus what's going on in Chicago right now, I understand because of the scale that that's what they want to do. I'm not trying to say that that's a solution for it.
Right.
right.
But when I think about differences, I can kind of understand that to some degree. It doesn't
Right.
make me comfortable because I think it's rooted in something that makes me very uncomfortable. But we're at a point now where I can see the difference in it. I just don't have to
You
agree with it.
And I feel like, we start talking about solution and I think about when you travel to some of these other countries. Like other countries love watching our news because they're like, dang, this is so stupid that y'all are going through these things. Where I live, if you even consider shooting somebody, they gonna chop off your arm. Or
Right,
the
right.
penalties are so severe, you're
So
like, I
severe.
ain't doing
So
that.
severe.
I ain't even
So severe.
I'm not gonna steal from nobody because I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
have we looked at that? Like the severity around some of these issues that are happening, the penalties are
Mm,
not really strong enough for people to even consider what they're doing.
mm.
You
Well, I
know?
think,
Listen
yeah,
to
go ahead.
this. Listen to this. Listen to this. U.S. kids are 13 times
Mm,
more likely to be killed by guns than kids in peer countries. And
Yeah.
and
That's real.
that's shocking.
what?
Yeah,
hmm
that's
What?
13
shocking.
times. That's huge.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna throw something else out there to you. I'm gonna throw something else out there to you. Firearms are now the leading cause of death for black men under 45. Now I want to say both of those in the same breath so that we can hear both of those perspectives
Mm,
because both of those perspectives are what we're talking about here right now.
yeah.
From one end, we're just talking about the pure
Mm,
guns and violence. And from the other
Mm,
end, we're saying now we are centralizing a race, and that race
mm,
it has a leading cause of
mm.
death being by firearm.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's such an insane
Wow.
stat. Yeah, that's such an insane stat. Well, here, I wanted to capitalize on what Jay was saying too, just to ask this question of y'all, because it relates to what you both were just talking about, the stats you gave, Quest, but then also what you were raising just before that, Jay. It's, again, you were talking about the severity of penalties in other countries and how that seems to act as a deterrent in those countries. We
yeah.
seem adverse overall, we seem kind of adverse to being punitive in that kind of way. But I
Mm,
feel like one of the things where we get stuck is we feel like it has to be one way or the other. Either it's going to be all restorative and you're going to find these healing ways to deal with these that aren't punitive, or somebody does something, you give them the death penalty. And we don't seem to be able to employ multiple mechanisms at once to try to
Yeah.
do. And that's where I feel like when I was saying earlier that I just hate that this has become such a political issue. And this kind of gets to
Yeah,
what you were saying a little bit earlier too, Quest. At the end of the day, we're talking about the loss of innocent lives.
Yeah.
That and how do we stop? How do we stop? How do we prevent the loss of innocent lives? Why is it so political that we can't find some middle ground somewhere and say, okay, some of these things can be restorative in these ways, some of these things need to
sure.
be damn punitive, because we all know there are people in this world that don't respond to anything but a fist. We know that.
Mhm,
I've probably been
mhm,
that person at times in my life. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And when you're trying to come at that person too soft, they're not going to be ready to receive that in a way that's going to keep them from doing the things that we find menacing. You know, so I
It's
know that
that's a
I get
whole
stuck in that
yeah.
space. Yeah, I get stuck in that space of like, which way do we go with this? I don't think it's one way you go. I think you
I
employ
think
multiple ways.
I totally agree. I told it's so crazy you saying this, CJ, because I agree with you 1000%. This is something that we were talking about, Dave and I were talking about over the weekend is restorative justice. And
Mm,
are we looking at this from a holistic lens versus just this one punitive lens? And I think people would probably be more, uh, you know, not okay, but I think people would be more receptive to, hey, we're going to send in, some people to come help Chicago in this way, but we're also doing this.
hmm Right.
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 We're also doing this as well in education. And we're also going to reach out and maybe have some clinicians come in or some people that can actually talk to people and do some things that are restorative in nature. And I think
Mhm.
those are the pieces that are missing. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
basically we just going to come in by force. And honestly, what I'm hearing in Chicago is that, some people are excited or not excited, but are very receptive to having these troops come in. But then
Mm,
a lot of us are also like, but what about the harm that will come
mm, mm.
from this as well? And I think that's something that people just aren't all in agreement with.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes, it is okay not to be. It's okay not to be in agreement with it. It's okay
Mm,
to be in some ways in agreement with it. We know that we're standing on different sides. Can we agree that innocent lives are being taken?
hmm
Like I
Yeah,
think I think
yeah.
that is the part where, I I I struggle with that, with a lot
It's
of what's being said because
yeah,
of how in some ways it's easy to um have the availability to carry a firearm in some
mm,
ways.
yeah,
A lot of people
yeah,
may not say that that's true, but it is.
mm,
yeah,
The numerous loopholes out here allow for that to happen, and then we're getting firearms and we're not getting the instruction with them. There's a lot of people out here that are not going to the range, are not
mm,
getting certified, do not have in Illinois their FOI card or
mm,
they're concealed to carry. They just purchasing guns from the gun show or whatever like that,
mm,
and they're making it hard for individuals that actually look at it from a hobby standpoint. Now,
mm,
let's be
yeah,
realistic. And I am going to be realistic because when it comes down to it, a lot of this is about my life.
mm,
And when I look at a lot around how they focus, what we generally think is um, levels of or degrees of elevation when it comes to fighting. When you get to a fear of your life, if
mm,
all I had was that gun, then
mm,
that's the level that I'm on. You know what
mm,
I'm saying? That's where I am with that scenario and situation. Um, and at the same time, how do I determine that? Right? And that's where it gets gray. Someone that has no weapon comes up and I start the fight, and at this point in time, I'm getting my ass whooped, and all of a sudden I pull my gun out and I shoot that person. Where
yeah,
we at now?
mm.
yeah,
Where we at now?
You
Right?
know
yeah,
we are.
So
Mhm.
I'm just saying it is a lot that comes with this. And I
Yeah.
feel that sometimes we all have to step back too and think about what it really is. It also is the person. It is the person first, I feel,
Mm,
because I know that I have so many different levels to go to before I get to this point.
mm,
And I don't care what a lot of people say. It is an instantaneous response when that's all you know.
mm,
Yeah.
But when you are trained to be
mm,
able to identify things and go through your levels of progression,
mm,
that might not be the first thing you go to. Whereas if you had no choice or you had no other direction into what you could do, guess what? Guess where you're going?
mm,
And that goes
Yeah.
for people that are gun carriers with cars and not,
mm,
because there's still some that have gone through the training and still don't understand it.
mm. Wow. Damn.
Yeah.
So, I get, us, uh, um, some of us, like talking about behind the safety of it all. And I feel that it has to start with the individual. It has to start with the individual. Either that person recognizing their own limitations or
Mm,
you identifying, like the person that we were talking about, and now that the trauma of I could have stopped this a long time ago. This wouldn't have
mm.
even happened. Like, sure, but that's not on you. And I know you feel it. It's not on you. This
Yeah.
is life. Life
Yeah.
does happen. What we're trying to do is is attempt in some ways to shift that paradox we was even talking about a little earlier,
Mm,
to make it seem like, nope, this ain't the earth that has 90% mass killings in it.
mm, mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm,
This ain't that earth. That's not the earth that we on. That's the
mm.
other one. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's not
Yeah.
ours, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I feel I totally feel you in terms of it starting with the individual. I think back to those four quadrants again, I think it also starts with the interpersonal too. And I
Mm,
yeah.
say that because oftentimes this is happening, it's an exchange, right? As you mentioned, it's two people shooting each other or having some altercation that elevates to that point. And then I think about the whole Minnesota piece. It's like
mm,
the interpersonal piece. What are some of the things that I'm observing of this person? I'm sure that the shooter has some friends or has some, people in their social circle that could maybe observe and be like, "Hey, this cat crazy." You know what I mean? And then
mm,
all of
Yeah.
a sudden,
mm,
they're just gonna like not say nothing. But I think it's that interpersonal awareness too, where it's like, hey,
mm,
something ain't sitting right over here, and as a stand-up human, I need
mm.
to say something about it.
Yeah.
Because you just never know whose life you may be saving just by saying something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Before it escalates to you being on the other side of something tragic. You
Mm.
Yeah.
know?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
are some of
Yeah.
the things
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about. You know,
Yeah.
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 it's
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
no
makes
one
sense.
answer.
Yeah.
I wanna really, come back to Trump and come back to Washington, DC.
Mm,
We've seen so many reports now coming out of DC where people have, made comments and looked at some of the findings that have come out of the analysis that have been done, and they'll say and tell you that DC is trending in the right direction. Crime is
mm,
lower. That things have been less of and stuff of that nature. We have a lot of people in our communities who are saying, we're just scared. We're
mm,
scared to go out. We're scared that they will deport us. We're scared that they will pick
mm,
fights with us. We're scared that they will
Sure.
falsely
mm.
imprison us. We're scared that they will do all these things. How much of this is for real? How much of this you feel is for fake?
Wait, wait, wait. When you clarify that question, when you're saying that, what do you
When
mean?
I
Like,
s when
what's
I
real?
say that, what I mean is look at it from a lens of being a, all of you are not parents.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? And look at it from the standpoint of yourself and your kids and
mm,
the activities that you do on a daily basis and consistent basis. And now incorporate that with this, ominous amount of, protocol and control and policing that now is in these areas that you go to every day, your job,
mm,
your favorite ice cream shop, Chinatown, and you go to your
mm,
favorite Thai restaurant, things of that nature, and you're seeing, this huge presence, and not
mm.
saying that these individuals are saying anything to you, but the fact that you don't know who they are, you don't know what they will do. What is that? What is this for real? Is this real life? Or are
Yeah.
we living in a facade? Are we living in a facade?
I can't help but think about I remember it was one time me and my boy we went to South Africa and we went to uh we went to Cape Town.
Mm,
And then I'll never forget we were there and you talk about troops and
Mm,
the
mhm,
just
mhm.
walking around with AK-47s and at the mall. Now, mind
mm.
you, we
Yep.
at the Nelson Mandela Mall. This is
Mm,
is a statue of Nelson Mandela outside this mall. In the same
mm.
breath, you look around the corner, and next to you is this troop with an AK-47.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
what it signals is, hey, don't you even think about
Right.
doing anything around here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like fear perpetuates more fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I, I
Mm,
I I
mm,
can't help but think about how this is happening in these black and brown communities. And then also you got one person holding a gun that's scared, and then you got another person just because they got an outfit on and some fatigues, they just
mm.
as scared. They the same person that's on the other side of this thing, and at any point in time, the guns can pop off.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember talking to somebody recently, they were like, when is it going to, they were scared it's going to reach a point that they're going to start snatching black people off the streets.
Mm,
Mm,
And it's like having these troops walking around. Now they can snatch up brown people because we know that is all alert, ICE alert to just snatch up as many brown people as you can. But what's going to stop them from doing that for black people?
mm.
mm,
Yeah.
So those are some of the
It's
things
scary.
I think about. Is just giving people even more reason to start snatching up people. And I pray that it never goes to that level. But at the same time, you have to think about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're talking about there is overreach. Like at
Yeah.
what point will this stop? And I think that is part of what's really scary. It's something like this gets instituted. What's going to stop the administration from continuing to go and to go and to go?
yeah.
Because we don't see any breaks coming. So to be able to do that under the guise of making neighborhoods safer, I can see that as an inlet to doing it. That a lot of people in our community might accept and then turn
Mm,
around 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, 3 years from now, like, oh my gosh, I regret that I supported that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if it's a solution that is not politicized and is temporary to do whatever, maybe I can get behind it, but it's the sort of thing that I can't trust. And I think that's probably the most major sticking point for me because you can see
mm,
this going left really quickly and like you
mm,
said, the moment that happens, we know who's going to wind up being at the
mm.
butt of what goes down,
Yeah.
and that's something I just can't support. Not if it's
Yeah.
somebody who's
Yeah.
innocent. And you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
guarantee me right now that innocent people will not suffer under this policy. So we're
Yeah.
Yeah.
talking about innocent folks losing their lives or innocent folks getting shot, harmed in some kind of way. I don't want that. But I also don't want innocent folks, if you bring in the Gestapo, I don't want innocent folks having to suffer under that and say that the ends justify the means. So if we've limited all the stuff going on here and a couple people have to
Yeah.
suffer, that's okay. Like I can't live with that either. So it's but
Yeah.
again, because it's become so political, people are not willing to meet in the middle on anything right now. And I think that's part of the shame.
Yeah. So you asked the question, is this real?
Oh,
You know, we here,
mm,
Yeah.
and so,
So
hmm
you know, yes,
how do we
it's
protect our families? How do we protect our families? Let me ask y'all that. And, when you think about this scenario, we all said that all things can, in some ways, be true. So if that is the truth, you have individuals that, have traumas and they see people and they want to take from them. They want the same luxuries. They want the same things. They want to, impose whatever they feel on other individuals that they feel, in some ways don't value them. I mean, you still got to protect your family. So what
yeah.
does that look like?
I think at a very basic level, it looks like having these conversations at the dinner table, having these
mm,
conversations on the car
Yeah.
ride into work, having these conversations when you picking your loved ones up from school. It's like having the conversations, and I don't think the conversation always has to be, we gotta go get a gun now.
mm,
I think
Hmm.
we start with the restorative justice at home
mm,
because clearly when we walk outside, we don't have access as easily as we would than if we were at home.
mm,
How
Yeah,
do we
I hear you,
uh,
Jay, but then what about if they trying to come at me now? Where's that restorative justice at in the moment, right? Like I
yeah.
feel you and I get that, but in that moment, like where's that at? Like if someone comes in right now, I know what's going on. I know where I'm pointing. I know where I'm going. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's easy because why you in my house? But that's what I'm trying to say. Like I'm trying to say, like I agree with you 100% that we have to have that restorative justice. And what I'm saying is, if someone decides in the middle of us trying to get to that point where people understand restorative justice, something like this happens to my family, what am I supposed to do?
Man,
Yeah.
that's the part that gets tricky,
Yeah,
and that's the part
Mhm,
where there's an intersection of personal belief, faith, your
mm,
spirituality, like all those things
yeah,
I think
yeah.
come into those decisions. And I don't
mhm,
think that there's a right one or a wrong one. I just feel as though there needs to be an informed one.
mm,
Like,
Yes.
mm,
Okay. I hear that.
I think
mm,
there's a lot of ignorant people making really, really dumb decisions,
mm,
just because they aren't informed. And so, I think, if I'm sitting here because I know you and I know for you, I'm like, bet, because I know you're gonna think through all these things before
mm,
you decide to pull it out. But not everybody's gonna do that.
Facts, facts, facts,
yeah.
facts. That's
So
real.
how do we educate people to start having the skills and the acumen you have so that that's the 10th step and not the first step?
Mm,
And that takes time. And that also takes, resources and things like that. So it's not just like a one. I wish I could just say it's this answer, because the
mm,
other answer, someone could say, well, just go get a pistol. And then it's like, well, if you
mm,
dumb and you got a pistol, what are you solving?
mm, yeah.
Yeah, I hear that too. I hear
Uh,
that too.
it's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. Like this is one of those where I honestly find myself stuck. Um, it's as because I don't know what the solution is other than things that feel real immaterial. Like I can start there.
Yeah.
But on a, quest, like you're saying, you're sitting there in the comfort of your house, not doing anything to anybody, living right, and suddenly somebody breaks in with a gun. You're not gonna be sitting there like, hey, brother, let's have a conversation and see if we can put this
Right.
down. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, you're not
Yeah.
gonna be in restorative justice mode at that point. You're gonna be in a
Yeah.
completely different, your amygdala kicks in and is fight, flight, is something. You're gonna do
Yeah.
something that does not involve
Right.
thought. Restorative justice involves thought. So
Yeah.
what do you do in that moment? I don't know if you're all the way on the restorative justice side. I just don't know because I know that I'm not there. But I'm also
Yeah.
not in the I'm gun toting ready for whatever's gonna come my way, right? Like I
Right.
find myself in this middle ground where my solution has been I'm just trying my best to live right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear
and
you.
not invite
Mm.
not invite that into my
That
space.
energy
Now,
into my space.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I get it. We're talking about like in Minnesota, we're talking about these kids. Those kids were not inviting that in their space, so I get that, right? Like even what I'm talking about has its limits. But other than that, it is really hard for me to understand what else I can do. You know, when I'm talking to my kids, when I'm talking to my wife, it is you have to be careful everywhere you go. You have
You
to,
do.
watch the times that you go to different places. Don't travel alone. So there are all those rules of engagement with the world that I think come into it. But then on a deeper level, it really is, and this gets way deeper into it. It's the idea of you invite into your space what you focus on. So
Come on.
You
Come
do.
on.
I'm not trying to
Come
have my
on.
mind in that space so much that I
I
create that
Yeah.
agree with that.
event
I
and
agree
those
with
Come
kinds
that.
of
on.
events in my life.
Come
I agree
on.
with
But
that.
that is a real act of faith. And that is a
Yeah.
real act of faith. That is a deep act of faith. It has worked well for me for a long time now.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
gonna work well forever, and I get that.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're stuck in the middle and trying to find something that doesn't involve being in either extreme, I've yet to really figure out what it is other than what I just said.
And
Yeah,
I
it
and I,
is
I
it's
yeah,
that's a perfect way to say that because I
that is.
always tell people that there's an energy that comes along with it when I'm
Mm,
walking around with it, right?
Mhm.
There's something that you have to battle. You have to be a master over that. Because if
mm,
you're
Yeah.
not, it will in some way, it'll seep into you. It'll
That's
seep
mm,
right.
into you. You
mm,
That's
just
right.
got to think about, being able to be proficient with something that a lot of people are not, being able to understand that you in some ways are mastering a skill
mm,
that a lot of people are not because they're not thinking about that, right?
mm,
And
mm,
a lot of times, that focus can be just mind blowing for some.
mm,
Yeah.
It can be a real sense of power. Like
mm,
you can really think that you are powerful.
mm,
And what we don't understand is that taking life is not a powerful move. It is
mm,
something that is going to happen regardless. And there's no power in that. You know what I'm saying? What you are
mm,
doing actually is creating more trauma for numerous amounts of individuals. And that's where I feel majority of the power comes in because
mm,
now you created another point of someone having to get past something else. Now I
mm,
gotta get
mm,
past something else.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
um, it is something that you gotta think about. I gotta think about it every day when I,
mm,
Yeah.
was working for the federal government. You gotta think, like, I'm on the plane with this thing, like
mm, mm.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what? You mean something about to pop off here in air? And you gonna do what? You can't think,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I get it. I try my hardest not to go everywhere. And it's everywhere because I do believe that. I believe in energy. I believe in
Mm,
frequency. I
Yeah.
believe that you are bringing that vibration. That vibration going to be right there with you all in the
That's
same
right.
space. And it
That's
mm,
don't
right.
matter. Someone can say one thing and that one thing could be, huh? And boom, 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 boom.
mm,
And here we are. Why
yeah.
why was I even here? Why was I
Yeah.
even here? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. I get that.
So I mean, question you asking us. So, what's the solution for you?
I think it's a mix of everything that we've said. I think for
Mhm.
me, understand and identify that I, have a certain energy that I know I'm gonna keep around me. And it's just because I do understand that there are people that don't think like us. I understand that I was, in some ways, what? I mean, I would be trying to get a come up too. Like, just be
Mhm.
honest
Mm,
about that shit. Like,
Yeah.
mm,
when it comes down to it, if I can take this thing that is powerful, put it to your head, and be like, give me your cash,
mm,
give
Yeah.
me everything you got, and walk
mm,
away from that, and pretty much not really truly got to worry about it.
mm,
And
Mhm.
I didn't know too much of anything else. This was just what it was. Sure. Sure,
wow.
sure. Not
Mhm.
saying that
Mhm.
it would be my mode of life, but I get it. I get that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get that because
Yeah.
guess what? You out here, you living this, you doing all this, and I'm sitting here, and we ain't got we don't know exactly where the meals are coming from. We don't.
Mm,
Yeah.
I'm trying. And you know when it's worse? It's worse when I'm out here trying. It's worse when I'm
Yeah.
actually going to work, going to school. It's worse when I'm actually doing all of the things to support my kids and stuff of that
mm,
nature, and I still can't get anywhere
mm,
close to ahead. And I'm seeing you lavish trips, all this different types of stuff,
Yeah.
talking them down at me, talking about how we doing this, that, just to keep them
mm,
going and stuff like that. Certainly, I'm at your door.
mm.
Certainly, I would
Yeah.
have a mode to be at your door.
Wow.
Right.
Certainly.
Wow.
Right.
And a lot of people wouldn't think nothing of it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to understand too that other people create an energy in which invites that type of situation and scenario.
Sure.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
it's just where would you be? What if I don't
Yeah.
really invite that scenario? I feel like I don't invite that scenario at all. I go out
Mm,
Yeah.
here, I'm in these streets, I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to allow for people to come and relax with me so they don't have to have that type of energy. But what if somebody felt like I was one of those people? They looked at
mm,
me and said, Quest, you an MC, I know you getting money. I know
mm,
you got money
Mhm.
coming out of all these gigs and stuff like that.
mm,
Hey, loan me $500. And
mhm,
if I
Mhm.
don't loan them $500, they go to the next level.
Yeah.
mm.
Then
Man.
what?
Yeah.
Then what?
Mm.
Then what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
what?
I'm
Then
with you on
what?
that. I'm with
So
you
it's
on
Man.
that.
like, and don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, it could be a then what, and I'm still dead, right? No doubt. It can be a then what and nothing happens. The person walks away and is like, no, you for real. I see you don't have $500. I hope you don't say nothing about this, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something like that. It can go a couple of different ways. My thing is, my choice in that situation, I hope I got it on me.
Damn.
Mhm.
I hope it's
Man.
with me.
Mm.
Well,
I
there's
think.
a there,
Yeah.
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, you got it.
I guess I was thinking to what Quest just shared, and I'm looking at Minnesota versus the Chicago incidents. Maybe that's why the incidents that happen in Chicago are just dismissed.
Mm,
They're just, oh, that's a part of the culture. That's because
mm,
those instances are happening in these nucleuses of negative energy. Like they're like in these concentrated places where it's like, well, it's gang related
mm,
and unfortunately there's innocent bystanders that get impacted from that. But it's easy for people to just be like, oh, that's just gang stuff. So,
mm.
it ain't really bothering nobody.
Wow.
Um, and I think there's some of that in the ethos as well.
Mm,
It's like, hey, as long as I'm not in that type of energy, then I really don't need to be concerned about it.
damn. Well, what part of that problem is you got people in there that can't get out of that.
Yeah,
Like it's
Yeah.
one thing if
yeah,
you're choosing that. If you're choosing that, cool. All right, that's the life you want to live, you go do it. But there are a lot of people that can't afford to get out of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle. Well, the place that I was about to go, which is again when I think about trying to find that middle ground for myself, or as we're having these conversations, where my mind went was thinking about, and this feels off topic, but it's really not. It was thinking about Malcolm X versus MLK, and how we had been taught for so long that the two of them existed at diametrically opposite poles. Malcolm was the by any means necessary. You see the picture with him in the window with a gun in his
Mm-hmm.
hand. You had King over here who was about the nonviolence and the love and all that. What people don't really think about, and it hasn't really been presented, even though it was obvious if you ever really look at both of their lives, shortly before each was assassinated, they were coming closer together. They were
Mhm.
actually coming close together. Like a lot of people
Yeah,
know about X going, he went to Mecca,
yeah, yeah,
saw
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people that didn't look like him, or he was like, wow, I could trust these brothers, da 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 da. He started to move away from that a little bit, was coming more toward the peaceful side. But people don't really know about King, man. Like he was dealing with all those threats for a while. He got to a
Going to
point,
jail all the
he
time.
got to a point where he was kind of like, I'm
Yeah.
sick of this. I'm sick
yeah,
of
Yeah.
this. And
yeah,
there's another way I'm gonna have to get. And at the time that the both of them were coming this way, who knows if they had come here? Imagine what we
yeah,
could have been.
yeah,
Imagine
Yeah.
what we could be right now had this happened. right? There were
Yeah.
forces that kept that from ever coming together. And as a country, we decided to pit them further apart than they were. And we have to make it seem like it's one or the other. It doesn't have to be that. And again, I don't know what this looks like, but this is what I'm trying to find.
Yeah. 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 Fellas, this has been an amazing
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
and I know that we will continue this conversation. I know that it
Yeah.
will be there's so many different places and dynamics to go with it, and I hope that everyone was able just to pull a little bit away
Yeah.
from it. I know there's so many different avenues that we can go with that, and we want to go in those different directions with us. So stick with us. We're definitely going to do a little bit more around just the whole gun violence and that area of just looking at where we are with guns in America, not just from the violence standpoint, but from the standpoint of being able to have and carry a gun legally. So we want to give opportunity for everything, but we do again want to put our hearts out to all of those people, all of them who have died over the past week, over the past 2 weeks, to any type of gun related or gun violence that has happened. Our hearts are out to you all and your
Yeah.
families. Right now, we just want to uplift you right now and allow for you to understand that we definitely our hearts are out to you. Mm, 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 mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that
Thank you,
note,
brothers.
y'all, yeah, thank you so much. We're gonna
Sure.
catch y'all on the next one. 40.
And that's a wrap on another successful and penetrating episode of the 4050 Social Club. We're obviously so glad you joined, and we hope that you found something healthy, affirming, and powerful in today's content. Please help support this movement by liking this video and following us on Instagram and YouTube at 4050.social club. We'll see you again next week, same time, same channel, as you work with us in this growing and important community to make these the best years of your best life. Till then.